Jamie was 24, a bright and ambitious young woman, fresh out of college, diploma still warm in her hand. She was eager to start her career and build a life for herself in the bustling city. And there she was, working her first job in the city, a junior analyst position she had worked so hard to get. The early mornings, the crowded commutes, it all felt worth it at first. But the reality of city living quickly set in. Rent was sky high, a significant chunk of her salary vanishing each month just to keep a roof over her head. And after paying bills, the electricity, the internet, the student loans, there was barely anything left. The excitement of her first job was slowly being replaced by the gnawing feeling of financial strain. Every month she watched her paycheck disappear, a fleeting moment of relief, followed by weeks of budgeting and penny pinching. It felt like a cruel joke. Almost as soon as it landed in her bank account, it was gone, siphoned away by the relentless demands of modern life. The stress was constant, a dull ache in the back of her mind, like a weight pressing on her chest, making it hard to breathe. She wanted to go out with friends, catch up over dinner and drinks, feel like a normal 20-something. She wanted to buy decent groceries, fresh produce, and healthy ingredients, instead of relying on cheap processed foods. And she desperately wanted to save up for a trip, to escape the city and explore the world, to create memories that would last a lifetime. But it all felt impossible, a distant dream that was constantly being pushed further out of reach. The fear of an unexpected expense, a sudden car repair or a medical bill, loomed over her like a dark cloud. Something as simple as her car breaking down kept her up at night, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios and financial calculations. Sometimes she'd skip meals, grabbing a coffee instead of a proper lunch just to save a few dollars, or ignore a bill, shuffling it to the bottom of the pile, hoping she could deal with it later. It was a constant juggling act just to make it to the next payday, a temporary reprieve before the cycle started all over again. Jamie felt alone, trapped in a cycle of financial insecurity, wondering if she was the only one struggling. She found herself wondering if anyone else struggled like she did, or if everyone else had somehow figured out the secret to financial success. As weeks went by, the anxiety only grew, feeding on her fears and insecurities. She'd scroll through social media, a mindless escape from her own reality, but it often made things worse. Seeing friends post about vacations, exotic destinations, and luxurious experiences only amplified her feelings of inadequacy, or new gadgets, the latest smartphones and fancy electronics, things she couldn't even dream of affording. She couldn't help but wonder how they managed, how they could afford all these things while she was struggling to make ends meet. Was she missing something? Some crucial piece of information that everyone else seemed to know? Was there a secret to making money last longer? A hidden strategy for building wealth that she hadn't discovered yet? Jamie knew something had to change. She couldn't continue living like this. She was tired of living in survival mode, constantly worrying about money and sacrificing her own well-being. Deep down, she hoped there was a way out, a light at the end of the tunnel, a path towards financial freedom, a smarter way to handle her money, a system that would allow her to save, invest, and finally start building the life she had always dreamed of. The pressure of living paycheck to paycheck is a very real and pervasive struggle for many. It's a feeling of constant anxiety, a tightrope walk where one unexpected expense can send you tumbling. It's more than just being short on cash, it's the emotional weight of knowing you're always one step away from financial disaster. Jamie felt it acutely every time she nervously opened her banking app. The anticipation of seeing a dwindling balance was a familiar, unwelcome guest. Each dollar was already meticulously spoken for, accounted for before it even arrived. There was no room for error, no flexibility in her carefully constructed budget. Rent, utilities, the absolute essentials that kept a roof over her head and the lights on, groceries, the bare minimum to keep her fed, and maybe a coffee or two. A small luxury that sometimes felt like a necessity. Anything extra, anything beyond the basics, like a birthday dinner for a friend, or an unexpected doctor's visit for a sudden illness, immediately threw her whole month off balance, sending her scrambling to make ends meet. It was a constant state of financial triage. She diligently tried to keep track of every expense, meticulously logging each transaction, but the sheer volume of bills and receipts felt overwhelming, a never-ending paper trail of financial anxiety. Sometimes she'd actively avoid checking her account altogether, a form of self-preservation, afraid of what she'd see, the potential for bad news lurking behind the screen. Even seemingly small surprises, like a friend casually inviting her out for drinks after work, instantly became sources of stress, a dilemma of wanting to socialize versus the reality of her limited budget. She constantly worried about incurring those dreaded overdraft fees and dreaded the thought of running completely out of money, facing empty pockets and mounting anxiety before the month was even over. It's a common situation. Many young professionals find themselves going through this same struggle. Starting a career, landing that first job, doesn't always magically translate to instant financial freedom and security. Often it means learning to juggle a complex web of financial responsibilities, bills, those ever-present student loans looming large, and the ever-increasing cost of just living, the everyday expenses that quickly add up. Jamie found some solace in realizing she wasn't completely alone in this, that others were facing similar challenges, but that shared experience didn't magically make the burden any easier to bear. The constant pressure and worry made it incredibly hard to focus on her job and career aspirations, maintaining friendships, or even prioritizing her own physical and mental health. Jamie finally realized she desperately needed a solid plan, a strategy to break free from this exhausting cycle of financial insecurity. She yearned to feel in control of her finances, to be the master of her money, not just merely survive from one paycheck to the next, but to actually enjoy life, to experience the freedom and peace of mind that comes with financial stability. One night, Jamie stumbled onto a YouTube video about budgeting. The host talked about taking control of your money instead of letting it control you. Something clicked. Jamie realized she'd never learned how to make a budget. She thought budgets were only for people with lots of money or complicated finances. The idea was simple: a budget is just a plan for your money. It shows where every dollar goes before you spend it. Jamie liked the sound of that. Maybe if she made a plan, she could stop feeling so lost. She started researching different budgeting methods. Some sounded complicated, but others were straightforward. The more Jamie learned, the more empowered she felt. It wasn't about restricting herself, it was about making choices that matched her goals. Jamie decided to give it a try. She grabbed a notebook and started writing down her income and all her expenses. For the first time, she felt like she was facing her money head-on. It was scary, but also a little exciting. Jamie realized that the idea of budgeting, which once seemed daunting and complex, didn't have to be complicated at all. It could be a straightforward process, tailored to her specific needs and lifestyle. She started with the basics, a simple yet effective approach to understanding her financial landscape. First, she made a comprehensive list of her income, accounting for every source of revenue, no matter how big or small. Then, she carefully subtracted her fixed expenses, those recurring costs that remained relatively constant each month. These included essential payments like rent and utilities bills. Next, she wrote down variable expenses, taking note of the costs that fluctuated from month to month. These were the expenses that changed each month, requiring a bit more attention and flexibility in her budget planning. This included things like groceries, gas for her car, or the occasional meal when eating out. To guide her allocation of funds, she found the 50-30-20 rule particularly helpful. It meant that 50% of her income was dedicated to needs, the essentials required for survival and well-being. These included crucial expenses like rent for her apartment and the cost of food to keep her nourished. 30% of her income was allocated to wants, those non-essential items that brought her joy and satisfaction. This could be anything from dinners out with friends to enjoying a streaming service like Netflix. Finally, 20% of her income was earmarked for savings and debt repayment, securing her financial future. This simple formula provided her with a clear framework to follow, preventing her from feeling overwhelmed by the complexities of personal finance. To streamline the tracking process, Jamie started using free apps available on her smartphone. Every time she made a purchase, no matter how small, she diligently logged it into the app. At first, she admits, it felt a bit tedious and time-consuming, like an extra chore on her already busy schedule. But soon, with consistent effort, it became a habit, an integral part of her daily routine. As she diligently tracked her expenses, she gained valuable insights into where her money was actually going. She could easily spot areas where she could potentially cut back on spending and identify opportunities to save more. By actively managing her budget, Jamie experienced a significant reduction in her overall anxiety levels. She had a clear understanding of exactly how much money she had available at any given time. This allowed her to allocate funds effectively for fun activities, long-term savings goals, and essential bills. She even made it a point to set aside a small, just-in-case fund to cover any unexpected surprises or emergencies that might arise. Budgeting empowered her with a newfound sense of confidence and control over her finances, a feeling she had never experienced before. Jamie's next step was learning about emergency savings. She had always heard people talk about having a rainy day fund, but never really understood why it mattered. Then her car needed repairs, and she had no money set aside. That was honestly a real wake-up call. An emergency fund is money saved for unexpected events, like medical bills, car trouble, or, losing a job. Experts suggest starting with $500 or $1,000, then building up to 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. It sounds like a lot, but even saving a little at a time helps. Jamie started small. She set aside $20 from each paycheck into a separate savings account. She treated it like another bill, non-negotiable. Over time, her emergency fund grew. Knowing she had a buffer made her less stressed about life's surprises. Having an emergency fund gave Jamie peace of mind. She didn't worry as much about the what-ifs. It made her budget stronger and her future a lot less scary. Good money habits are honestly the foundation of financial health. Jamie learned that tracking her spending was key. She checked her accounts every week and reviewed her budget at the end of each month. This really helped her catch problems early and adjust as needed. Avoiding debt traps was another important lesson. Jamie cut back on using credit cards for things she couldn't afford. If she had to use a card, she made sure to pay it off in full each month. That kept her from racking up interest and fees. Jamie also set small goals like saving for a weekend trip or paying off a bill early. Reaching these milestones kept her motivated. She celebrated her progress, even if it was just a little extra in her savings account. Building good habits took time and effort, but it really paid off. Jamie felt proud of the changes she made, and her new routine made money less stressful and gave her hope for bigger goals down the road. Once Jamie felt more confident with her budget and savings, she started thinking about the future. She read about investing, but honestly, it seemed confusing at first. Words like stocks, bonds, and retirement accounts made her head spin a bit. Jamie learned that starting small was totally okay. She opened a retirement account through her job, a 401k, and put in just enough to get the employer's match. Free money. She also looked into simple investment apps that let her start with just a few dollars. The key was consistency. Jamie set up automatic transfers so money went into her retirement account every month. She didn't try to time the market or pick risky stocks. Instead, she focused on steady growth over time. Investing early, even with small amounts, made a big difference. Jamie knew her money could grow while she focused on living her life. It was one more step toward financial freedom. Looking back, Jamie was honestly amazed by how much had changed in just a year. She wasn't rich, but she felt in control. Her budget worked, her emergency fund was growing, and she was even investing for the future. The stress of living paycheck to paycheck was finally lifting. She still had challenges, but they didn't feel insurmountable anymore. If she overspent one month, she just adjusted the next. If an emergency came up, she had savings to cover it. Jamie learned that progress wasn't about being perfect, it was about making better choices, one step at a time. Friends started asking Jamie for advice. She shared her story and encouraged them to try budgeting too. Seeing her own growth inspired her to dream bigger, maybe even buy a home someday or start a side business. Jamie's journey showed that anyone can take control of their money. It's not about luck or having a huge salary, it's about making a plan and sticking with it. Ready to start your own financial journey? Here's a simple plan, inspired by Jamie's story. First, write down your income and all your expenses. Use the 50-30-20 rule to organize your budget. Next, open a separate savings account and start building an emergency fund, even if it's just a few dollars at a time. Track your spending every week. Avoid debt by only using credit cards for things you can pay off right away. Set up automatic transfers for savings and, if possible, for investing. If your job offers a retirement plan, join it and get any employer match. Remember, you don't have to be perfect. Start small, celebrate your wins, and keep learning. Money mastery is a journey, not a race. With each step, you'll feel more confident and in control. Take action today. Your future self will thank you. You've got this.